Am I going to allow myself to take on all this debt? Am I going to allow myself to mortgage my future to pay for a present? Or are we going to make changes today that will benefit our future selves? Hi, it's Dre Griggs of Obsidian Wisdom. Today we'll be answering the question, why are so many Americans pulling money out of their 401k? It says the number of people who made a hardship withdrawal during the second quarter surged from the first 3 months of the year to 15,950, an increase of 36% from the second quarter of 2022. The number one reason Americans are pulling money out of the 401k is because of inflation. As we have to make our ends meet and we keep spending the exact same way that we used to spend, as things become more and more expensive, even if you're making more money, there is sometimes a gap. And a lot of times people ask me, Dre, when should I make an adjustment on the type of food I'm eating? And when should I make an adjustment on my lifestyle? And it really comes down to how much excess money did you have? How much disposable income did you have? If you have to make a small change in your lifestyle, or maybe you guys don't travel as much, but you still get to maintain all the rest of the things that you like doing, then for most people that works pretty much fine. But if you have to spend more and more money on the groceries, because I know I went and anything. You pick anything. The bread that we're getting, it's gone up like 40, 50%. Really, if you look at a lot of the groceries that we're getting, everybody has to make their own decision. When is enough enough? Like, when should I look for an alternatively, priced good? Everybody, it changes. But it's important to make sure that we don't go in with our eyes closed, because we each have to deal with the question, when am I going to change my lifestyle? Because that's what inflation really is. So you often hear me, and I'll say that I'm someone who believes in a balanced budget, right? I am someone who thinks if you, as a government, can't figure out how to make the numbers work, then you have to let us know what's most important to you. The thing about not balancing a budget is it lets everyone feel like they're important because everybody's being spent on. But the reality is, the more and more money that is being spent, the more and more we are being taxed through inflation because our money is worth less. As our money is worth less, we have to spend more money to buy the same lifestyle. And that's what most Americans are dealing with. So the article was saying that people were taking more and more hardship withdrawals. And so if you're not familiar with a hardship withdrawal, most 401ks have certain structures where you may be able to take the money out as a loan. You may be able to take the money out and not have to pay it back. And some 401ks are designed where you can't touch the money at all. And so if you are taking the money out in a hardship where you're trying to figure out, how do I pay all my bills because the money that I'm making isn't covering the lifestyle that we used to be able to afford. The thing that I think a lot of people don't understand is, if you were, so for example, if you were to take $10,000 out, and then once you start taking into account the fact that the money is not going to be growing in your investment funds anymore, then you really are missing out. And you guys have seen where someone can invest as small as $5 a day, but if they leave their money invested for 40 years, they'll have $1 million. Someone can invest as much as like $200 a month, and then that money will grow exponentially as well. Where we have time on our side, that money grows significantly. So if you were someone who emptied out their 401k at 20 and then you started over at 30, that 10 years that you lost is a pretty big opportunity cost. But at the same time, we all know that we have life, we have bills, we have kids, we have things that we have to accomplish. But oftentimes, the way I will tell people is, we all know, generally speaking, because you're not going to get a mortgage otherwise, you want to keep your mortgage, your debt's income, how much of your income your mortgage payment takes up. We normally want to keep that around like 30%. That's normally a pretty healthy spot. And then if you were to say, okay, what about like my credit card bills and my other bills? Normally you want to have those somewhere around like 10, 15%, really on the lower end as much as possible. Ideally, you don't have any credit card debt, but understanding that credit card debt is increasing as well as these hardship loans. In fact, the New York Fed reported that U.S. household credit card debt surpassed the $1 trillion mark for the first time ever. And so that's another sign that we're trying to maintain that middle class life. We're trying to maintain the exact same opportunities that we had with our houses and our cars and the things that our families used to doing, but we're taking out more and more debt to maintain that lifestyle. And as the credit cards max out, then people are going to have to go into the 401k. But then what happens when the 401k, when you've accessed all of that money, right? At the end of the day, there's really only three types of relationships that people will have with money. They'll either spend more than what they make, they'll either spend everything that they make, or they spend less than what they make. And so you want to be able to say, look, things have changed. In this inflationary time, we can't keep pretending that we can buy the exact same things that we've always bought. As more and more people max out their credit card debts, as more and more people empty out their 401ks, we have to take a step back and say, am I going to allow myself to take on all this debt? Am I going to allow myself to mortgage my future to pay for a present? Or are we going to make changes today that will benefit our future selves? Because your future self, right? At the end of the day, the life that we have today is based off of decisions that we made 5 years ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. And there's not much that we can do today to impact today. Now, the decision that we make today will impact our 5 years in the future self. If you're someone who is focused on unlocking generational wealth through strategic retirement planning, then you know that the last place you should be taking your money out is your 401k, inflation and all, because you have to make the change at some point. So we either make the change now or we empty out all of these accounts and then we don't have any more credit, but we have credit card debt to pay back. We don't have any more money in our 401k. I would say let's recognize what's going to happen and let's maintain the relationship that we know is the right one with money. And that is, I spend less than what I make. And by less than what I make, I'm not saying that you don't spend the money that's just like sitting nowhere. But what I'm saying is that you pay yourself a set percentage from every single check. Ideally, we want to get to a place where 20% of the money that we make is being paid back to us, where we use the other 80% to give to nonprofits or to the church to be able to pay back debt, to be able to pay for our mortgage and our groceries. So I'll go back to the allocations. Generally speaking, you would want to have about 30% of your allocation towards your mortgage. You want to have about 15 to 20% of your allocation towards your groceries. And so that's going to put you, let's just do the clean math. So I'll put you at 50% is just going to cover your house and your food. And then when you talk about your bills, we talk about the gas, we talk about the electricity and all these other things, that would be maybe another 15%. And then you leave yourself another 5 to 10% to be able to cover any of that entertainment and the excursions that you want to do. For most people, if you're able to maintain the percentages, then as you ebb and flow in life, you're going to be okay because the money is going to just be covering the way that our allocations are. Now, what we end up having to do is where are we going to take the money out if for some reason inflation makes it where we have to spend more money on groceries? Well, your mortgage is already a set payment. Ideally, as you keep getting promotions, as you keep getting raises, as you keep building a more successful company, that mortgage is no longer going to be 30%. It's going to end up lowering. But sometimes the insurance goes up with it. So, I mean, it's very difficult. But ideally, as the mortgage becomes a smaller percentage of your income, you can then allocate that additional 2 or 3% that you've had as a raise towards your debt or towards something else. But as long as you are being, I would say, at least aware of the percentages, where it used to be 15% of your income went towards your groceries, but now it's like 20-25% of your income goes towards your groceries. Well, where is that extra 5 to 10% coming from? Are you taking that out of the 20% that you're supposed to be investing in yourself and your retirement and your generational wealth? Are you taking that out of the vacation fund? Like, where are you taking that money out of? As long as you're aware of where the money's coming out of, then your plan is fine. The problem is for most people, we don't actually make any adjustments. So what ends up happening is we used to spend, I don't know, 100% of our income, where 80% did cover all of our bills and our lifestyle. 20% was invested in our own future and generational wealth and retirement, and then we were good. But now that inflation's gone up like 10%, for most people, they are just spending 10% more. So everything stayed the same, except they're now spending an additional 10%. So now they're spending 110% of their income. Now, I'll ask you this way. If you were able to invest in a business and you looked at their balance sheet and you saw that that business was spending 110% of the money that they make, where they make $100 every single month and they spend $110 every single month, what would you think about that company? You would probably say, all right, Dre, if they have a strategy and they're doing it for the short term, okay, I think we can make it work. We can take on the debt. We can leverage some things. We can make some things happen. But after time goes on, where inflation's maintaining, where interest rates are increasing, where it's more expensive to buy a house, where it's more expensive to buy a car, as these rates are increasing, where it's more expensive to take loans out, where it's more expensive for you to be able to invest in your business, then you have to make some sort of a change. Ideally, you guys have probably noticed there's actually some benefits of the interest rates going up. You guys have probably seen some high yield bonds that are 5, 6%. I've seen the Apple one is like that. I've seen a couple I bonds are like that, where you're getting a really good return on your money. Versus, 5 years ago, you're getting like a 0%. It was like 1 point, or it was like 0.000, like 1%. So now you're at least getting some returns on your money because their bank is making that much more, right? You have to think about it that way. If the bank could pay me 6%, how much is the bank charging someone to use my money? And so we just have to be able to say, okay, in a certain environment, and when it's an inflationary environment, that means that we have to pull back on some of our spending. And maybe that means that we take advantage of this by investing more to where we're getting better returns on our money, where we're not having to take on as much risk, but we're still maintaining certain things. I'm not saying that we want to walk around eating, cat food or something like that. But what I am saying is that we should be mindful about how much of our money is going towards groceries, how much of our money is going towards gas and our electric bill, how much of our money is going towards these variable costs that is possibly eating away at our money. Because if you're not aware of it, then you're just going to keep taking the money out of your 401k, keep taking on debt, and it's not going to work. And if that wasn't enough, the federal student loans, so whenever you that have student loan payments that were paused because of COVID, that was like 3 years ago. So in this coming October of 2023, those payments are going to start picking back up.